Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. And today, well, today is Hump Day.
Uh-oh. Mike. What day is it, Mike?
It's Hump Day.
Hump Day!
It's Hump Day.
Hump Day!
That's right, folks. Today is Hump Day. This is the day in which we attempt to begin the weekend, sometimes with success, sometimes not. But as I always like to say, the fun is all in the trying. And we're going to have a good time here today, even though Mike is not with us, but you're here, I'm here, we're here. And so we're going to have a good time nonetheless. No dilly-dally or anything like that. Let's just jump right into it. But wait, before we do, got to do what we usually do. That is start off with a quick shout out to our sponsors. First of all, we have Hitman Industries. They make rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase at any length. All you have to do is go to hitmanindustries.net. Then we've got the California Republican Assembly, known by Ronald Reagan as the conscience of the Republican Party. Find out why by visiting them at cragop.org. And then we've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market at hogholsters.com. And make sure when you go there, use the discount Hog Holsters, all one word. I'm sorry, the Rundown, all one word, no spaces, one word, just like it is right up there, all caps. And get your Hog Holster on discount today. And then finally, there's the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun. That would be uscombatgear.com. They have a huge selection. They have excellent pricing. And, well, let's just say the best customer service available out there. Find out why at uscombatgear.com. All right, crime is always an issue in urban neighborhoods, and some people want to say it's culture. Some people want to say they want to say it's a bunch of things. I happen to believe that soft on crime, or when the government is soft on crime, in particular when prosecutors or law enforcement is soft on crime, well, that crime generally tends to go up. And it would appear that things are looking that way, according to information and data that has been put out there by the Department of Justice. They're basically saying, "Hey, you know what? Sounds like a good place to be is a place where, a good place to be is a place where you have someone who is tough on crime." Now, this is a piece here. It's over at why am I all of a sudden National Review? That's it. I'm like forgetting NR, thinking News and Review, but that's not the News and Review anyway. But it's the National Review, and they're commenting here basically on the fact that crime is way down in a number of urban cities, in particular urban cities where they have gotten rid of George Soros pro-crime, or at least soft on crime district attorneys. Let's read a little bit here. It says here, on X Tuesday morning, FBI Director Kash Patel celebrated the city of Baltimore's recording just 4 homicides in the month of April, the lowest number since tracking began in 1970. This comes amid a broader decline of violence and criminality in the city. There were 10% fewer killings and shootings than at the same time last year. Homicides fell 61% between 2015 and 2025. Robberies decreased by 46% in the same time period after reaching a peak in 2017. This is no longer the city made infamous in the television show series like The Wire. And I wanted to see here. It says here, the recent crime and reduction in Baltimore has many causes, some of which apply to the nation at large and are reflected in similar drops in crime in Washington, D.C. Gentrification has played a larger role in Washington, D.C., but it also is happening in Baltimore. The median age in the country has increased by 4% in a decade. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, most crime is committed by young men and men in their prime, by young men and men in their primes. As we've seen in other blue cities dumping soft on crime prosecutors, in Baltimore's case, Marilyn Mosby, and putting criminals behind bars gets results. In 2022, Baltimore initiated its group violence reduction strategy. in collaboration with the state's attorney general's office. This program focuses on incarcerating or otherwise removing the worst repeat violent offenders from the streets and directing resources toward those most at risk of gun violence. This approach has not only proven effective, it has won over support and cooperation from communities most affected. The strategy short circuits reciprocal patterns of gang violence. Baltimore receives a modest amount of federal funding for the GVRS program. Other programs like Real Time Crime Center, which expanded Baltimore Department's use of security cameras and monitor crime, are also consistent with improving numbers. Now, here's the thing that I want you to recognize. First of all, and this is the thing is the first thing that I appreciate that they recognize here is that it's a people issue. Crime is a people issue. Violent crime is a people issue. It's not a gun issue, right? People want you to think that all violent crime is committed with guns, and if you just get rid of all guns, that will end all violent crime, that'll end all robberies, that'll end all murders. That is a lie. That is just flat out a lie. In fact, most of the crimes with firearms are committed. Most of them are committed as either gang shootings or drug related. So they are gang or drug related. Let me clarify. Most of the non-suicide shootings, because suicide is still the number one cause of death with a firearm that's out there. But once again, that's not a tool issue, because there's no evidence that if you had fewer firearms, fewer people would be trying to commit suicide. There's no evidence to prove that at all. But what this points out is that first of all, it's a people issue. And they recognize you've got to attack the problem on two ends. One side, the liberal end likes, which is putting in resources in order to help those who might be potential victims of gun violence or violence from a firearm, right? Giving them safe places to spend their recreational time, giving them opportunities to stay plugged in a safe environment and have mentors so that they're not engaged in activities that might cause them to get, caught up. Once again, I know y'all say, well, I don't like the midnight basketball programs. Well, the midnight basketball programs do in fact work because they get kids off the streets. Now, these are not the violent kids that we're talking about. These are the kids who might be running in the areas in the atmosphere where those violent kids are. These are the ones who might be influenced by those violent kids. It gives them something else to get plugged into. But then there's something that those of us who are conservative that buy into, and that is tough on crime. One thing that poll after poll and study after study, when you talk to law enforcement, here's what they know. They know a overwhelming majority of the crimes are committed by a small percentage of people. And if you can just number one, identify those regular reoffenders, and you can punish them and basically keep them off the streets or get them off the streets, crime will go down. Not only will violent crime go down, but property crime will go down. As property crime goes down, violent crime goes down. See, once they know that you're serious about enforcing the small crimes, they're a lot less likely to hang around to engage in the big crimes. That's just the way it works. Rudy Giuliani, who became famous as the mayor of New York, that's exactly what he did. He went after the small offenders. It's called the broken windows theory. Right? Now, he instituted a program called Stop, Talk, and Frisk, meaning, it wasn't just stop and frisk. They didn't just stop people and frisk them. They stopped people. Police would engage. They would talk with people. And if something was suspicious, they would search them. And oftentimes they found drugs, firearms, or weapons, and or some evidence of a crime. And that played a big role. So guess what? People stop engaging in those little crimes. And then you had the wave in the 1990s, the wave in the 2000s, the 2010s, where everybody started going soft on crime again, where they started decriminalizing crime. He started electing George Soros DAs who weren't charging people. right? Who weren't charging them properly, who weren't working to try and get people who were criminals, in particular habitual criminals, well, they weren't trying to get them off the streets in some of these areas. In fact, they were claiming they were the victims and trying to help them get back on the streets. We saw that was when our district attorney here in California, who would become our senator, who would become the vice president, introduced that concept of quote unquote smart on crime. I'm doing my air quotes, right? Where basically you decriminalize crime and you let criminals out of jail. Yeah, that's what they did. And we saw crime for the first time in 20 years skyrocket in California. We saw violent crime for the first time in 20 years skyrocket in California. Well, she wasn't the only one doing it. There were these DAs and these district attorneys and these attorneys general all across the country that were doing this. And so we saw a massive increase in crime across the country. Well, people in certain areas got upset. San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Los Angeles, where else? Alameda County. No, I don't know if they actually got rid of their DA in Alameda County, but Baltimore. There were a number of DAs. That's exactly what they did. They got rid of the ones who were soft on crime, the ones who were elected by George Soros, and they saw crime go down. Their communities were no longer friendly to crime. Funny how that works, isn't it? Funny how that works. When you actually decide you're going to enforce the law, good things happen. Well, and that, by the way, is also what's happening across the country right now with illegal immigration. As we crack down on illegal immigration, you got fewer illegals coming into the country. And the ones who are most likely to break that law, our immigration laws, are people who are criminals. Funny how that works, huh? Let's see, criminals are more likely to break the law. Oh, I get it. That's why they're criminals. Anyway, there's this one comedian, and he says, well, I won't even get into it. But there's one comedian, and he jokes about politicians, and he basically just talks about how. No, I'm not even going to get into the joke because if I do, I'm going to totally just mess it up. But speaking of criminals, the FBI has raided the home of a Virginia Senate Democrat, Senator Lucas, who was involved in the who was deeply involved in the redistricting that took place there in Virginia. So some people wonder, does it have anything to do with the redistricting? Is this political payback? Well, apparently not, because this actually has something to do with the fact that this individual is involved in a cannabis business. Check it out.
The FBI here telling us today that these are court-authorized criminal search warrants that they are issuing, and they're going into the building behind me. This is the office here in Portsmouth of State Senator Louise Lucas. You can likely see some of the FBI agents behind me. All of the staffers inside this building were told to come outside. I could hear them saying that they were not allowed back in the building. Throughout the last hour, we've been seeing the FBI come and go carrying boxes out of the building. Now, just across the parking lot next to where I am, there is a cannabis dispensary. We know that the state senator is associated with several cannabis locations and dispensaries. And what we're seeing there, a completely different scene carrying out. SWAT teams arrived with their weapons drawn, telling anyone in the building to come out of the building with their hands up. We also saw at least 3 people being taken away, taken into custody. First, they were put in handcuffs, put on the ground, and then they were taken away. So it's a slightly less large presence than we did see earlier, but there still is a good amount of FBI agents still here on the ground. Also, what happened within the last hour, the Senator Louise Lucas arrived here herself. I was able to speak with her. I asked her what her reaction was to all of this. She told me she had no idea what they were doing here. I asked her about the different locations that they might be. She, in response, asked me what locations the FBI were at today. We know, according to officials, at least 10 locations are being looked at today.
Okay, so updated story here by the over at the Fox News. It says FBI raids Spamberger ally office as federal corruption probe targets cannabis business. It says the FBI raided a powerful Virginia Democratic lawmaker and ally of Governor Abigail Spamberger as a part of a federal corruption and illegal marijuana sale probe, Fox News learned. Longtime state senator Louise Lucas, a major power broker in Virginia politics, who stumped for Spamberger on the campaign trail in 2025, is now the center of a major FBI corruption probe, according to federal law enforcement sources. A federal law enforcement source familiar with the case clarified that the corruption probe was opened by the FBI during the Biden administration. Agents executed court authorized criminal search warrants at Lucas's office in Portsmouth, Virginia, Wednesday, according to federal law enforcement sources. The FBI simultaneously carried out a SWAT team search in a nearby cannabis dispensary co-owned by Lucas. At least 3 people were detained during the raids. The state senator arrived at her office as the raids were being conducted. She told Fox News that she had no idea what the FBI agents were doing at her office. The search warrants were signed off by a federal judge who agreed there is probable cause to conduct the raids. Spokesman for Spamberger told Fox News that the governor is aware of today's law enforcement operation in Portsmouth. The spokesman then added that, quote, in the absence of additional details, the governor will not be commenting on a federal investigation at this time. The raids put more political pressure on Spamberger, who already is facing tumbling poll numbers, as many critics accuse her of forcing down a far left agenda on the once purple state. This is not the first political firestorm Lucas has faced. So in other words, so this woman's already kind of controversial, but here's the interesting thing. Spamberger did not play the usual Democrat card and basically denounce it as, oh, this is Trump just trying to get revenge, because, well, she knows there may be some there. She doesn't want to be caught up in defending someone who she knows could possibly be corrupt and or be involved in something, or maybe it doesn't have anything to do with the specific person. Maybe it just has to do with the business. You never know. And there's too many things that are tied up into this that at least it was very, very smart of her not to comment, because she don't know nothing. And federal judges do not make it a habit. Now, once again, I would love to see who the judge was who did it, because I want to find out who appointed them. Because I do know that well, they usually don't make it a habit of approving warrants that have no warrant or no probable cause. Evidently, this judge thought there was a sufficient probable cause for them to say something, for them to do something, for them to be involved or engaged in this particular action. I just want to know exactly what that something was. And I don't think that's too much to ask for. I don't think that's too much to ask for at all. Anyway, there's definitely more to be coming out on this particular thing, unless there's no there. Could it be political retribution? I doubt it, once again. But then again, I want to say that Trump would not do that. I do not believe that I'd like to believe the DOJ wouldn't do that, but they did it under Trump. So you never know. I mean, they did it under Biden to go after Trump. So you never know. But there will definitely be more to come of this. It doesn't look good that it's a Democrat. But then again, you can't not enforce the law just because a Democrat is the one that you're enforcing it against. If they're breaking the law, you got to go after them. So anyway, once again, I'm literally looking forward to hearing more and seeing more about this. But just know that this is going on, and there is definitely a side story to this. Now, we've talked on the show, and we've had the Deputy Attorney General for Civil Rights, who also oversees the new Second Amendment Department at the DOJ on the program. And one of the things we talked about were some of the things that the federal government could actually do in order to improve their position, improve their protection of the Second Amendment civil rights of Americans. And one of the things that we talked about that was brought up had to do with the machine gun rule, right? Well, actually, I don't know if that was part of the but that was one of the things that was part of the discussion. Anyway, recently DOJ released a whole new package of new rules, really designed to protect the rights of those who want to exercise their Second Amendment rights. And John Crump wrote a piece because he's a little concerned that while they did make some changes to the machine gun definition, he doesn't believe that they went far enough. So here we have John Crump over at Emma Land, who I interviewed over at 2A News, talking a little bit about uh, well, why he believes that the DOJ did not go far enough in their change of the rule. Tell me exactly what this rule change does, and then why you don't think it goes far enough.
Okay, back in the original Trump administration, they passed the uh, rule to redefine bump stocks as machine guns. And as we know, in the Cargill case, the Supreme Court said that they cannot do that. It went too far. So we expected the rule to roll it back to pre 2018 standards where it's all about the rate of not the rate of fire, but a single function of the trigger. And they did roll it back. They removed the stuff about bump stocks, but they kept a couple things from the new rule in there, including expanding it to frames and receivers. Now, that might not seem like a big deal right now, but when we get a less friendly ATF in office, they can use that to start banning parts, kits, and everything else. And I think that will be exploited in the future by the left leaning administration that comes in that hates guns because they're going to take a mile when they should only take an inch.
That's an excellent point. And a lot. So, a couple of things that I wanted to note on that. First of all, I want you to recognize what he said. That was during it was the first Trump administration that went after bump stocks. And I said even back then, I said, look, well, you got to be real careful about precedent that you set. If we allow a president that we like to go after a firearm part that we don't care about, violate separation of powers, violate the Constitution in order to go after a firearm part that we don't own or like, what's to keep a future president that we don't like from going after a firearm part that we do like, and once again, violating separation of powers in order to ban it. And that's exactly what Joe Biden did. Joe Biden came in, and sure enough, he went after pistol braces. He went after force reset triggers, and a number of other other firearm related things. He wanted to then start to regulate, and control, and redefine stuff. And in this particular case, what Trump did was he redefined what a machine gun was, even though it was something that was defined in statute. They did it They did it via executive order. They did it via the rulemaking process by simply reinterpreting the rules. Well, John and I would go on to talk about Chevron deference, and we would go on to talk about a lot of the rulings that have created really a more of an onus, one on the executive branch to say, look, no, you're the executive branch, you don't get to write laws, but also was more confident, more forceful on the legislative branch, telling them you need to do a better job of doing your job. In other words, you can't just leave these things undefined so that they can be interpreted one way by one administration and another way by another administration. You need to make it clear. Well, in this particular case, the definition was clear. There was no, it had nothing to do with how fast it shot. It had everything to do with the function of the trigger. And they just basically violated that. Anyway, so what he's also saying is that you also, what he's saying is they should have also included the exclusion of frames, frames and receivers. And the reason why, once again, is because they could still put in place a rule, no matter how nonsensical it would be, that would make it so that they could ban those. So they could ban firearm parts kits. Anyway, it's good stuff. I actually sent you all a copy of the article. If you're looking in the comments section, you have a copy of the piece that he wrote over at Amoland. Very, very informative, very, very sharp guy. And the interview you can find over at 2A News. Just go look for 2A News on YouTube, and you can find that interview there. All righty, let's see here. Oh, we already got the new ATF rule. Oh, here's an interesting one. So leaving California makes it 48% more likely that you will eventually be a homeowner. I do not find this hard to believe at all. I know I am a homeowner. I've been a homeowner for a while. If I weren't a homeowner now, I don't know that I could afford to buy a home here in California. At least I couldn't afford the home that I've got. How about that? Anyway, here's a piece that's written. This is over at Fox 11 Los Angeles. Leaving California makes home ownership 48% more likely, study finds. It says here, a decade-long analysis confirms that California dream is increasingly being found elsewhere as residents fleeing the state's high cost of living achieve home ownership at a significantly higher rates in more affordable regions. Data from the California Policy Lab at UC Berkeley, tracking households from 2016 to 2025, shows a stark contrast in affordability. Californians leaving the state moved to areas where the median home price was $396,000, or 48% lower than their previous neighborhoods. Monthly housing expenses, including taxes and insurance, dropped from an average of $2,376 in California to $1,705 in destination states. Renters benefited similarly, seeing monthly payments slashed by roughly 30%. The price tag has gone up in on the California dream, and many families are leaving the state for more affordable places, said Evan White, executive director of the California Policy Lab. He noted that the impact of these moves is stark, highlighting that destination neighborhoods are often half as expensive, allowing families to transition from renting to owning much, much faster. And this is just, I hate to say this, but this is just obvious. You've got Gavin Newsom declaring that, oh, well, no, more people are coming than are leaving. The only reason we have more people coming than leaving is because of illegal immigration. Trust me, if it weren't for illegal immigration, we would have more people leaving than coming. And that would be easily said for the last 4 to 6 or 7 years, that would be the case. Not only that, it's the quality of the people we are losing. The quality of people we are losing are people who are high income earners, medium income earners. They're the people who own businesses. They're moving their businesses and they're taking the jobs with them. And many of their employees are going with them to much more affordable places. That is just what's happening. And they're being replaced by low income, unskilled workers. We've got more homeless here in California than any other state in the country. We've got more illegal immigrants here in California than any other state in the country. Why? Because we provide incentives for people to live those lifestyles here in California. We incentivize them to come here. I know you're saying we're just trying to help, but when you give them benefits, right? When you give them benefits, people are going to take advantage of it. There are people who are going to take advantage of it. I'm sorry, but that's just the truth. You don't want to admit the truth. You don't want to own the truth, but it is in fact the truth. And California taxpayers have been victimized by it. And many California taxpayers are tired of it and they're not going to take it anymore. That is what's going on. Anyway. Oh, excuse me. I don't know why I'm coughing all of a sudden. All right. Now we've reached a point where we are at our parting shots. Parting shots are brought to you by Hog Holsters. Go to hogholster.com. Use the discount code The Rundown. All caps, no spaces, one word. Get your Hog Holster today. All of our parting shots today are going to be brought to you by the Babylon Bee. That's right, the Babylon Bee. Fake news that you can trust. This first one here, if you know the story of Katie Porter, who's running for governor, she's a congresswoman. This will be hilarious to you. It says here, California governor debate descends into chaos as Katie Porter dumps scalding mashed potatoes on moderators. Yeah, that's because they asked her some tough questions and she wound up getting a D rated. She's just because she's a dunce is the problem. But yeah, she was charged with committing domestic violence against her husband and dumping mashed potatoes on his head, scalding hot mashed potatoes, along with many, many other things, which is the reason why she will not be the next governor of California. It says here, turd on San Francisco sidewalk, now polling second in California governor's race. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Nobody is out of the teens yet. Steve Hilton seems to be doing a pretty good job of maintaining number one, but every week there's a different person in number two. Steve Hilton Steve Hilton's been number one. Chad Bianco's been number two. You had Swalwell there for a while. He had to quit. You've got Javier Becerra there now. They're hitting him with ads. I wouldn't be surprised if he wound up quitting here pretty soon as well. So anyway, because they're gonna come get him. They're gonna get him bad. All right, here we go. It says here, compassionate federal judge rules assassin should get one more shot to kill Trump. Yeah, because we all know how the soft on crime judges are. Oh, here's a good one. Democrats clarify everyone is a Nazi except the guy with the Nazi tattoo. For those of you who do not know, Maine Democrats have nominated a gentleman who has his name, Graham Plattner. Anyway, he has a guy who has on his chest a Nazi tattoo, or it's not supposedly it's been covered up now, but yeah, he had a Nazi tattoo on his chest, and we're supposed to believe he's not really a Nazi. Then you got Newsom says California population is actually growing if you don't count all the people who are leaving. Kind of pretty much fits the story we were talking about, wasn't it? Anyway, next up, Tucker Carlson denies ever hearing of this Tucker Carlson fella. Yeah, for those of you who have not seen the interview with the New York Times, she really beclowned him. She basically said, "Yeah, you called him the Antichrist." He's like, "I never called him the Antichrist." And then right afterwards in the interview, they play the time on the show where he called Donald Trump the Antichrist, and he says, "I don't know where those words came from, but they never came out of my mouth." I'm like, AI is getting really, really good, isn't it? And then finally, sorry excuse for a Blue Sky user hasn't even tried to assassinate Trump. Because we know all of those folks, all of the people who want to kill Trump are all over on Blue Sky. I'm not saying everybody on Blue Sky wants to kill President Trump, but everybody who wants to kill President Trump is on Blue Sky. How about that? Anyway, folks, that brings us to the end of our program. But before we go, we're going to give one more quick shout out to our sponsors. We've got Hitman Industries rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase at any length. We've got the California Republican Assembly, the conscience of the Republican Party at cragop.org. We've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market at hogholsters.com. That's HAWG holsters.com, helping Americans wear guns. And finally, the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun, and that would be at uscombatgear.com. All right, folks, that's it for today's program. We very much appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing the program, urging your friends to do the same. We will be back tomorrow on Throwback Thursday. Till then, y'all have fun, stay safe, and we will see y'all mañana.